Your patent brought in a good amount of money. My manager called me into the hallway this morning without warning and dropped the bomb on me, seemingly in jest. What do you mean by that, I wonder? Do you mean the patent I obtained at my former employer? The strange remark completely confused me, but I decided to accept it in stride. It must have been a joke. Well done on that one. But in all honesty, why did you join this organization? Why did you quit your previous career and join here? At that moment, a female coworker named Jessica hurried over. The CEO has made an internal call. Boss, please call him back as soon as possible. Really? What was the issue, according to him? He simply stated that it was urgent without providing any details. After hearing that, I got a quick instinct that something must have surfaced, and we were now at the precipice of a serious problem. I felt myself mumbling. I guess this is it. We've lost everything. The boss silently stepped closer while giving me a stern look. Hey, what does that mean? The CEO is waiting for you, boss. The boss gave me a sidelong glance with a twisted sneer after being prodded and then clicked his tongue in frustration. He then swiftly gave Jessica a warm smile. He said, "Keep this in mind," and then he walked quickly past me. I'm 41 years old and my name is John. I am merely a typical office worker. I was the usual boy who enjoyed playing outside with my pals from elementary school to the beginning of middle school. However, I suddenly became interested in math and science as high school drew near. At first, it was difficult, but with persistence and tutoring, I was able to get into the high school of my choosing. I put a lot of effort into studying science for college, and I got in without any problems. I committed myself to research and met like-minded people in the lab. In addition to my own scientific endeavors, I wasn't satisfied with merely learning. In order to maximize my time, I also decided to take on part-time tasks, such as baristing at a cafe, working in the kitchen, and serving as a server at a pub. The feeling of being surrounded by vibrant individuals was revitalizing. It was like going back to my busy childhood. Despite my enjoyment of social interaction, I believed that since I had studied science, I should use the abilities I developed by everyday research in my work. I consequently went job seeking, and after receiving multiple job offers, I decided to work for a firm that makes socks. After conducting research and development for 7 years, I was able to obtain a patent. It was a minor accomplishment. I was by no means affluent. A feeling of achievement erupted in my heart at that moment. Yet it was also overshadowed by an approaching sense of exhaustion. I came to the realization that if I kept working at this position, I would eventually become bored and lose myself. I continued working at this same profession for 5 more years after coming to this revelation, until one fatal day I decided to look for a job and ended myself in sales, which is a very different field from what I had originally intended to do. I was initially confused. I had a lot of failures, but now that I've been doing it for 7 years, even though it still gets difficult sometimes, I think it was a wise professional choice. I felt a new sense of pride and responsibility after being appointed to section chief last year. White, the director, called me one day to inquire about the progress of a certain issue. White has been with the organization for 25 years and is a devoted employee. He was only one of the sales managers when I started, but 4 years ago, he was elevated to the position of head of the sales division. However, it's doubtful if he truly demonstrated skill to earn his position. Could it be that he subtly undermined his competitors to gain his position? It is startling how he denigrates people and how incredibly self-centered his words and behavior are for someone in a position of authority. I responded, "Yes, we're planning to finalize the contract around the middle of next month." When asked about my intentions for the upcoming month in connection with that topic, assuming it had to do with the contract we were working on. "How come? Next month? Not this month. You know, we've been making plans around it. John M., you ought to have brought that up earlier, don't you? Are you treating your work casually?" I opened my mouth to remark that I didn't take my work lightly, but I refrained. As I thought about what he had just said, I kept blinking. We have previously discussed this topic. White was already aware that the contract will be finalized the following month. I distinctly recall having explained it correctly. Is he pretending to be ignorant in order to make fun of me, or is he simply forgetting? This time, the contract appeared to be pushed to the next month because of the opposing parties' situation as well as our intentions. However, we were able to reach a compromise and move it to next month. That should not be viewed as a source of criticism, but rather as an accomplishment. White didn't directly complain when I brought it up before, but he did indirectly make nasty comments. Just like now, it seems like he was itching to proclaim me incompetent. However, White, I think I told you about this earlier. Due to the other party's scheduling, it appeared that it would be postponed to the following month. However, we were able to move it forward to the following month at our request. I wanted him to comprehend that reality more than I wanted to refute it, so I spoke as quietly as I could. But White just said what he wanted to say, utterly disregarding the spirit behind what I said. Well, I'm telling you that I wasn't informed about it. You can't just make things up. You're not a kid anymore. Making excuses won't get you forgiven, right? Maybe he's incapable of empathizing with others. Finding no words to return, I remained silent, looking down. Why are you looking down? You must be trying to deceive me. Remember, lying is the first step to thievery. I had to suppress the urge to retort that he was the one pretending and lying. No, but I assure you we will finalize the contract next month. I've had enough of that line. Whether we can close the deal this month is the issue. Don't try to change the subject. But fine, if it's going to be next month, prepare another one for this month. Unable to say anything back, I just nodded slightly and turned to leave White's office. I could feel his lingering sticky gaze on my back, which was quite unsettling. In reality, I've already far exceeded this month's quota, but of course I couldn't say that. It looks like I'll have to make some more sales calls from here on out. There was a time when White almost reassigned one of my clients to another employee. Wasn't this client under your care in this company turning around? Jessica was holding out a brochure and looking down at me. Jessica is a sales employee 10 years my junior, but has been with the company longer than me since she joined right out of college. I took the offered document from her and checked the company name written at the bottom right. It was indeed my client. Yay, it is, I said. Thanks. Why do you ask? White called me just now, asking if I could take over the handling of this company. It's a big deal. I nodded and came back, but before I sat down, I saw your face. Then it suddenly came back to me. I already had an appointment with this company and was planning to visit them on Thursday. It's possible, I thought. Why didn't I know? But it's baffling why. As the section chief, I was bypassed in favor of Jessica for such a significant deal. I understand if the intention was to give her experience, but from the company's perspective, it would be safer for me to handle it. Or perhaps he knew I was already progressing with the deal and intended to have her take over. Now, however, if we announce a change of hands at this point, the client will surely be suspicious. While it's not impossible to visit with Jessica and hand it over in person, this deal was something I secured through my sales efforts. It's an important transaction, and progressing with it would undoubtedly be a significant achievement. Is someone trying to sabotage that? What could White, of all people, be aiming at by doing something like this? I'll go and ask White about it myself. Thank you. I appreciate it. After a brief nod, I watched Jessica return to her desk, lost in thought. As I stroked my chin, I felt like it wouldn't make much of a difference considering White was involved. I couldn't come up with any ideas and headed to his office without a plan. Direct. Jessica informed me that I had previously been in charge of the company to which she had been assigned. I'll be going to see them on Thursday. I am aware of that. You're too sluggish, so I considered giving it to Jessica. Having some competition within the organization is okay. In addition, the customer may want to collaborate with her. It might be fascinating. She will manage it well, I'm sure. Since I've already built a relationship of trust with the client, that's simple to express. Because of the foundation I've created, the transaction should go through even if Jessica takes over under my direction. But I worked hard for that. It is not my intention to brag. Jessica should be well aware that every salesperson is fighting fairly. This time, she told me about the matter right away because of this. Even though we could be competitors, fair play is crucial. Well, I don't mind if you claim you'll manage it. Kindly go with that. White leaned back in his chair haughtily. Should I be relieved that he's letting me handle things at least this time? The director's frequent interference in significant and expansive projects is what annoys me the most. Participating in bigger projects, of course, improves one's reputation inside the organization, and a mechanism is in place to guarantee that the president is informed of these accomplishments. By trying to get engaged in manager or chief-level responsibilities, the director takes advantage of this and suggests to the president that things wouldn't have gone as planned without his help. He inflates his own significance by giving the idea that he is involved in every significant business. He keeps an eye out to make sure that chiefs and managers' ratings don't get too high. Almost no contract, even one of this size, is too big for a manager-level person to handle. We would respectfully request the director's assistance if his participation was actually required. White's uninvited interference appears to be a strategy to keep his job as director. Even when he does become involved, it's simply on a surface level, and he obstructs tasks that can be done without him. In an attempt to claim all the glory for himself, he places the problematic aspects on the person in charge. Everyone is well aware of his dubious methods and is tired of them. The following day, at about noon, I heard White yell my name out of the blue. He motioned for me to walk outside with his head as I halted my work and got up to go to his desk. We paused in front of a silent window with no one around, and as I followed the director out into the corridor, I started to question exactly how far he intended to take this. Then he blurted out something totally ridiculous, his expression suddenly smug. "Your patent sold for a pretty penny." Lol, what do you mean by that? I was shocked and unable to express my feelings, but I was curious about his actual motivation for saying that. Are you referring to the patent I secured at my previous company? Perplexed by such a ridiculous remark, I chose to accept White's comments with a grain of salt, assuming he was lying as usual. White's propensity for lying is well known in the workplace. He routinely makes up stories concerning work-related issues without thinking twice. He will undoubtedly have to deal with the repercussions when a problem eventually emerges. He's also the kind of person that willfully engages in harassing. I have personally experienced this a few times, and it got worse once I was elevated to section chief. In any case, why did you join this company? Why did you quit your last job to come here? You haven't been that helpful here, really. You only became a section chief out of sympathy. Perhaps you ought to think about returning to the business where you obtained that patent. However, it may be too late now. Lol, you might as well help someone else if you're going to remain idle. Of course, we'll divide the profits. Later, provide me with your bank account information. White then chuckled in a weird, eerie way. Jessica rushed over at that moment. The CEO has made an internal call, Director. Please call him back as soon as possible. Is that correct? What was the issue, according to him? He didn't specify, just insisted that it was urgent. I had a quick gut sensation after hearing that something must have been revealed, resulting in a serious issue at the moment. This must be it. We've lost everything, I muttered to myself. The Ken, director, silently approached me while giving me a stern look. Hey, what do you mean by that? Director, the CEO is waiting for you. White clicked his tongue in frustration when prompted, but he soon gave Jessica a kind smile. Then, as though about to scold me, he turned to face me, one corner of his mouth quivering with rage. He brushed past me and began to move quickly away, saying, "Remember this." I was deep in contemplation for a while. However, I narrowly missed the director hurrying out without even looking at me as I made my way back to the department. He quickly left and got into the elevator. Combining it with the previous phone call, it became evident that he was going to the CEO's office. I hesitated for a moment before following my escalating feelings and knocking on the door of the CEO's office. I listened carefully and heard voices, although they were faint. White was facing the CEO as I softly opened the door. I noticed the CEO's harsh attitude and his pallid cheeks. The CEO's expression softened as he turned to face me. If my memory serves me well, I apologize for the interruption. From the sales division, I'm John. I could sense the tight atmosphere in the room while I was saying this. Yes, exactly. Isn't it, John? Your recent accomplishments have been reported to me. Do you have anything for me? I politely declined the praise, but because the president had already asked, I felt it was an excellent opportunity to discuss the current problem. Even though I had already decided what I wanted to say, I still found myself stumbling over my words. I caught a peek of the department head, and I saw that he was looking at the carpet below. White here actually just informed me a short while ago that he had sold my patent. What is meant by that? Are you referring to your own patent? The story was so shockingly strange that the president didn't appear to understand what was going on. That's correct, I said, turning back to face White. He was now facing us with a startled expression. Maybe he was afraid that he had already offended the president, and now something else had come up. When the department head interrupted, I turned back to the president to continue, trying desperately to keep from laughing. President, the conversation that was just had was not understood. Yes, we did discuss the patent, but not in the way that was just described. White's expression was grave. I wanted to make it clear that selling a patent to someone else to benefit the world is an alternative if you're not going to use it yourself. He may have misinterpreted it because I said I was selling it to others. It was only intended to provide guidance. The way he twisted his apparently convincing answer, I couldn't help but assume it was a joke. All right, if that's the case. However, White, be careful what you say. Take extra care to avoid upsetting your subordinates. And we were talking about that issue. The president gave the director of the department a harsh look as he said this. Yes, the department head said, jolting to attention with his hands firmly clasped at his sides. Our conversation is far from over. Would you mind going out now, John? Yes, indeed. I wanted to argue, but it didn't seem wise to oppose the president and ruin his mood. The idea of the department head fabricating stories while maintaining a straight face annoyed me as I bowed and walked out of the president's office. I should find a chance to speak with the president once more. However, is it possible that the patent was actually sold? It has to be a falsehood, no. I could get the information online, but it would be against the law for a third party to sell a patent without the owner's consent. Hold on. I should first see if it's against the law before making any snap judgments. So, is it improper for the firm to do this? I went to a cafe during my lunch break. I used one hand to control my tablet and the other to munch on a sandwich. I read about patent transfers on the patent office's website, and it seems that it's against the law to transfer a patent without the owner's consent. Additionally, I learned that the transfer of patent rights requires identification verification documentation. I would not have given my assent if the department head had submitted my identification documents without my consent. If not, it would only be regarded as forgery. It's a serious felony in any case. It makes no difference if the other person is my superior if that is the case. I'll take White to court. I made the decision to phone the patent office to get confirmation. Hello, yes. Would it be feasible to transfer patent rights without the patent holder's consent? No, that is not possible because a transfer needs the holder's personal identification. So that's a relief, I thought. I was reassured and let out a sigh of relief. That would also be regarded as a criminal offense. I advise speaking with a lawyer or patent attorney if you think you might be getting into trouble. I appreciate your concern. Sincerely, I was thinking positively once I hung up the phone. For such a hard chore, I didn't think White would bother to go around the law. I went back to the office and took a glance around, sighing. The department head appeared to be more capable than any of the managers. Some even appeared overly capable. Instead of being petty like the department head, everyone was nimble. The manager and the staff beneath them, not the department head, are responsible for the company's continued operation. He has always had a knack for stealing projects. Perhaps I should bring up White's wrongdoings with the president directly. After all, I'll again appropriately explain the patent problem at that point. White eventually came back from lunch. I inhaled deeply before resolutely getting up to go see him. Not many people were at the workplace right now. They were most likely out meeting with clients. Do you have a moment, White? Yes, what's going on? More significantly, are you not scheduled for any appointments later? His tone was a little patronizing as he questioned. In the afternoon, I had intended to prepare some documents while conducting sales calls from within the office. Everyone will leave you behind. Do you feel content in your current role? He may be harboring resentment for the incident that occurred in the president's office this morning, which could explain his sudden statement. He isn't pursuing the matter, though, most likely because he is considerate of the small number of workers present. I tried to say no. I also aspire to be promoted to department head eventually, calmly after having that notion. The head of the department then abruptly furrowed his brow. How come? Why choose the department head above the manager? Is this an insult directed at me? Are you starting a quarrel? His swollen belly threatened to pop his shirt as he leaned back in his chair and gave me an ugly look. It appeared as though one of the buttons would suddenly pop off. No, you are misinterpreting. My ultimate goal is to become a manager, but I also wish to go to department head and, if feasible, higher. I want to have this done as quickly as possible. I plan to keep competing with my opponents in a fair and open manner, without snatching away their possibilities or undermining others. In addition to helping the business expand, doing this will improve staff morale. White leaned back in the chair and put his elbows on the table, gently straightening up. Then he turned his face away and gave me another look, this time with a startled laugh. How come? Are you making a speech to promote yourself? A demonstration? You're telling me all this, but why? He almost sounded as though he clicked his tongue in mid-sentence. You realize how cheeky you are. And just now, again, what was your point? No. After some thought, it appears that my problem is not urgent and will take some time to consider. I'll find another opportunity to bring it up because it looks like you're busy. I got to say at least one thing. White scowled once again as I hurriedly bowed to him before turning on my heel. After that, I spent a lot of time preparing documents, but I felt the need for a break, so I went to make coffee in the break room. At that point, Jessica showed up. Since she spent the entire afternoon in the office, she may have overheard the conversation with the department head. Jessica said, "What was that with the department head earlier?" as she poured herself a cup of coffee. "You seemed to be arguing, but I couldn't hear you clearly because I was too far from my desk." It turned out that she had seen the scene. She is the kind of person that will ask her superiors anything that interests her. I shook my head gently and replied, "It's nothing. Nothing you should worry about anyway." "Really?" It appeared to be really tense, she added, cocking her head slightly in an attempt to get a better sense of the situation. "Well, it's all right. Speaking of which, though, I think it's odd that the department head gave me the section manager's project. Giving me a project of this magnitude suddenly? Normally, it would be handled by an HR representative." She went on, exactly, after I confirmed her viewpoint. "Typically, I would anticipate receiving a project via a manager or section manager rather than the department head directly." Jessica was exactly right. She understands how things ought to operate. I nodded in agreement, then silently signaled to her to stop talking by putting my index finger to my lips. No one else would be in here, yet we could be overheard by someone walking by outside. Jessica closed her mouth, which had started to open again, as soon as she realized what it meant. Someone abruptly tapped my shoulder after she had been back in her seat for some time. I looked back and saw White standing there. "John, may I say something?" I gave a nod and moved into the corridor. At the first bend, White wheeled and came to a stop in an empty area. "How are you today?" Anger and confusion were mixed together on his face. Given that I don't confront him directly very often, his response may be expected. My persistently belligerent demeanor must be making him uneasy. "No, you've been behaving really oddly today. It's concerning, don't you think, to barge into the president's office and then abruptly begin that conversation?" His rage was more nagging than blowing off the handle. In fact, I was also curious about that. "Are your earlier statements regarding obtaining my patent rights accurate?" In an attempt to hide my rage, I asked in a calm voice. "If it were true, how would you respond?" Although it's plainly a falsehood, his tone seemed to be testing me. White smirked abruptly. "It's obviously a falsehood. The entire thing, a falsehood." Well, it was a lie. At one time, though, I did give selling it some serious thought. I gave up on that plan, though, because the patent office informed me that I needed personal identifying documents, making it appear impossible. He asks why the man would blatantly use language that verges on criminality, especially to someone who might have been the victim of the very thing he was after. You know what I mean. Ignoring patents that you aren't using is a waste. It is unfortunate that they are not being utilized. Art is only valuable if it is useful to someone. Isn't that right? Don't you agree with this? Although I agree with his message, he is approaching it incorrectly. Don't appear so terrified. All right, I'll pretend to be merely mediating the transaction. I can raise your cut if you're unhappy with your portion. I apologize, White, but I'm not understanding. When discussing sharing and mediating, I was almost expecting what was going to happen next, as the talk seemed to stray into disturbing terrain. Let's sell your patent since I'll find a buyer. What I'm saying is that you are aware of that, and while I can appreciate his point, I do not believe my patent is for sale. Why does he selfishly advance his agenda while ignoring my situation? It would be difficult to find a buyer on your own, wouldn't it? You would undoubtedly be lowballed even if you were to discover one. But see, I have a large external network and the experience. I can locate a suitable buyer. He uttered such gibberish while grinning smugly. I refuse to sell it. Your attempt is akin to pressuring the owner to sell an asset they have no intention of selling. White instantly made an exaggerated rejection gesture by waving his hands in front of his face. That isn't the case at all. You're being stupid. It's frustrating. Think about it, really. We always engage in sales efforts, and this is no exception. It is merely acting as a mediator between a buyer and a seller. What is this man talking about? Even though he acknowledges attempting to sell something the seller has declared they don't want to sell. For the sake of argument, let's assume that you are correct. However, even if that's true, his eyes broadened as though he wanted to know what the issue was. I'm stating that I will not sell it. Please take a step back. What a bore. This is where you should be connecting with me. Later on, I would make sure you got the nice things. I ought to have brought this up right away. White closed his mouth and smiled menacingly at that. Here's the deal. I'll give you preference going forward if you agree to sell the patent. I will stand beside you. Believe me, you may quickly rise to the position of manager. Wait a minute. Take action now. Don't hesitate. Either you sell it or you don't. Join me as an ally or turn against me. What is it? It lacks the which component. I don't plan to sell my assets, and even if I did, I wouldn't approach the department head for assistance, much less take a position under him. I refuse to sell. My adversary is you. The department head stared at me and raised his eyebrows forcefully when I said that. Is that correct? Okay then, just keep this in mind. He then clicked his tongue and walked quickly past me. I knew I needed to take action before the department head could take action, so I made the decision over the weekend to tell the president everything on Monday morning. I called his office, obtained authorization, and rushed to his office after publicly declaring him an adversary and predicting the president's coming. I knocked, slipped the door open, and stepped inside. Salutations, Mr. President. John from the sales division is here. John, good morning. What is this significant issue that you brought up then? Is it urgent? I responded firmly, saying, yes, it's about White, the head of the sales department. Oh, how about him? The president appeared quite interested. I began by outlining the department head's efforts to boost his personal accomplishments by getting involved in projects run by managers and section heads. With his hand on his chin, the president listened. I then brought up his need to seem involved in all significant and big projects and his ability to manipulate events to deny the managers the credit they merit. What are your thoughts on this, John? I understand that White wants to defend his position as department head, I retorted. His role as department head, however, need to focus more on overseeing and enhancing the work of section leaders and managers. The existing strategy is totally incorrect. He is unable to prove his competence as a department head in this manner. I see that your critique is very direct and concise, and the president smiled elegantly and urged me on. Furthermore, isn't there more to it? Not just you are dealing with this problem. You must have more to say about yourself after traveling all the way to the president's office, don't you? I said nothing. Like when you visited on Friday? Could you elaborate on that discussion? I was relieved to be able to tell this individual everything when gently prodded. I appreciate your care. I bowed my head and apologized for coming by unexpectedly on Friday without phoning. The head of the department actually informed me the other day that my patent had sold for a hefty sum. It was also abrupt, and to be honest, I didn't realize what was going on at first. Even if it were theoretically feasible, it would be unlawful for a third party to purchase or sell a patent without the patent holder's consent. It is illegal. I paused to gather my breath after uttering all of this in a single breath. I questioned White directly about the real reason for his behavior. I was shocked when he acknowledged that he had attempted to sell it without authorization. It's a serious problem if that is true. Yes, he responded. It may be difficult to believe, but it is true. He wanted me to collaborate because that was not possible. He promised to take care of me in many ways and ensure a rapid increase in the firm if I found a buyer and paid the brokerage charge. The president's soft grin had entirely disappeared, leaving behind a severe look. How did you react when presented with such a proposal? I immediately and categorically refused. Well, that's good. That was mumbled, and then there was silence in the room. The CEO then started talking earnestly. So, are all of your statements to date accurate? I can't stand working for that person any longer. I said so, bowed to the CEO, and walked out of his office. I ran into White as I turned the corner in the hallway leading back to my department. The head of the department winced, then scoffed and glared at me right away. Get out of the way. Since I hadn't done anything wrong, I questioned why he was picking fights. No, this man is suddenly an adversary. Where are you going? The director of the department pretended not to hear the inquiry. He passed me quickly, maybe in a rush, and didn't even look at me. The phone rang when I got back to my department, and a high-pitched voice said, "Section Chief, the CEO is calling for you." I quickly returned to the CEO's office after nodding. I walked into the CEO's office and found it to be cold and tense. White initially attempted to sidestep the subject when I questioned him about what you had told me earlier, but in the end, he acknowledged it, both the issue pertaining to everyone and your patent. But I believe that acting in this manner raises doubts about you as a person and as a boss. The CEO cleared his throat. It goes beyond that. He has committed a number of mistakes that should never have happened while preoccupied with things like department head duties. In addition to being a bad person, he has also failed in his work. He is hurting the company's earnings and providing a poor example for his staff. The department head's face had lost its natural color, and he looked old and weathered. You see, I have to go now for a crucial business. Could I please be excused? Naturally. Best of luck. Yes, I will be heading out. His head hummed down in despair as he answered and glanced at the head of the department, staring at the carpet beneath his feet. White, the leader of the department, was then demoted as part of an immediate personnel move. Instead of being promoted to a position like section chief, he was given a brand new job that wasn't even as high in the hierarchy as team leader or section chief. Neither managerial duties nor the power to command subordinates were associated with this role. The job could as well be non-existent. He became a sidelined employee as his pay undoubtedly dropped. He cannot simply be demoted to a regular employee due to his lengthy stay, but this isn't done for White's benefit. Rather, it's done in light of the company's subpar structure and the culture among its staff. White, however, appears to have resigned already because he could take it no more. I was able to work more freely when the chaos subsided and White departed the organization. My body and mind felt lighter without the needless stress and harassment, which enhanced my performance. Additionally, Jessica, the second salesperson, put in more effort and gave his all to a big job I recently gave him. The newly promoted department head treats everyone fairly now that White is gone. In addition, he is a nice and gentle individual. White, who is currently unemployed, appears to be leading a solitary life and wasting the money he saved while working for a wage. I doubt I'll ever see him again.